She sat alone at the edge of the observation platform, watching a distant blue star slowly fade behind the curved glass of the orbital station. The station was huge, filled with travelers from many worlds, but this corner remained quiet. Most beings avoided silence, but she welcomed it. Silence felt safe. Silence did not ask questions she did not want to answer. Her name was Lyra, though few people used it anymore. To most of the galaxy, she was a failure, a diplomat who could not prevent conflict. Rumors followed her wherever she went, whispering through corridors like cold wind. Some said she had caused a war. Others claimed she had betrayed her own people. The truth was more complicated, but she no longer tried to explain. Ships passed outside the station like slow-moving stars. Cargo vessels, military patrols, and civilian transports drifted through space with purpose. She watched them without emotion. Once she had traveled like that, carrying hope and responsibility. Now, she simply observed. Footsteps approached behind her. She ignored them at first. Many travelers came here briefly before leaving again, but the footsteps stopped near her, and the presence lingered. She sensed curiosity rather than judgment. The humans stood a respectful distance away. Humans were still rare in this sector, known for their strange habits and emotional openness. He wore a simple maintenance uniform, slightly worn at the edges. His hands showed signs of hard work, and there was a calm confidence in the way he stood. He didn't speak immediately. He simply looked at the stars beside her as if sharing the silence instead of breaking it. After a moment, he said quietly, "You smell like earth after the rain." No one had spoken to her like that before. Most beings addressed her formally or avoided her entirely. His words were simple but oddly poetic. She studied him carefully. Humans were unpredictable, but his tone held no mockery or hidden intent. He seemed sincere.
"I do not know what that means," she said calmly. He smiled faintly.
"It means calm, fresh."
Like something new is about to begin. She looked back toward the stars. The description felt strange yet comforting. Something inside her shifted slightly, though she did not understand why. He introduced himself as Elias, a maintenance technician assigned to the station's outer systems. Not a soldier, not a politician, just someone who fixed broken things. The simplicity of his role surprised her. Most who approached her wanted something important. He seemed to want only conversation. Their talk began awkwardly. She answered briefly, expecting him to leave. Instead, he stayed. He spoke about storms on Earth, about how rain changed the smell of soil and air, about how people sometimes felt renewed after difficult times. His voice carried warmth, and his stories felt real in a way political speeches never had. Days passed, and he returned often. He never pushed her to talk. Sometimes they sat in silence watching ships pass by. Other times he shared small stories from his life. Repairing old machines, growing up near forests, watching lightning storms with family. She began to notice details about him. He always greeted the station staff politely. He carried tools carefully, as if respecting them. He treated even small tasks seriously. One evening, a group of diplomats walked across the platform and recognized her. Their voices dropped to whispers. She felt their judgment, like a heavy weight pressing down on her chest. Elias noticed her tension but said nothing. Instead, he began talking about a funny incident involving a malfunctioning cleaning drone. His story distracted her long enough for the diplomats to pass without confrontation. She realized he had done it intentionally. "Why help me?" she asked quietly after they left. "You looked like you needed a normal moment." Normal. The word felt foreign. She had not felt normal in a long time. Over the next weeks, she found herself waiting for his visits. She told herself it was curiosity about humans, nothing more. But when he arrived late one day, she felt unexpected disappointment. He apologized, explaining that a power relay had failed in the lower decks. Several systems nearly shut down, and he worked long hours repairing them. As he spoke, she noticed exhaustion in his eyes, but also quiet satisfaction. "You risked yourself for machines?" she asked. "For people," he replied simply. "If systems fail, people suffer." Meanwhile, hidden observers watched their interactions through surveillance systems. Political factions still searched for Lyra. Her knowledge remained valuable, and some believed she could still influence galactic events. Reports about her meeting with a human began circulating quietly. One evening, Elias arrived carrying 2 cups of warm tea. He handed one to her without asking permission. She hesitated, then accepted it. The warmth spread through her hands, grounding her in the moment. "You don't ask about my past," she said. "You'll tell me when you want to," he answered. His patience unsettled her more than pressure would have. Slowly, she began sharing small pieces of her story. Not the full truth, only fragments, diplomatic missions, long negotiations, and the burden of expectations. He listened without interruption. No judgment, no pity, just attention. For the first time, she felt seen not as a symbol or a failure, but as a person. Outside, a storm of cosmic particles drifted past the station, creating shimmering lights across the glass. The colors reflected in her eyes, and Elias noticed a faint softness replacing her usual guarded expression. "You look different when you watch the stars," he said. She almost smiled. As days turned into weeks, their conversations deepened. She began asking about human culture, about emotions humans expressed so openly. He explained that humans were imperfect but persistent. They made mistakes but tried again. His words challenged her beliefs about failure. Perhaps mistakes were not the end of a path, but part of it. One night, alarms echoed through distant corridors. Emergency lights flickered briefly before stabilizing. Elias immediately stood, instincts taking over. "I have to go," he said. She watched him leave quickly, moving toward danger without hesitation. Something tightened in her chest. Concern. Unfamiliar, yet strong. Hours later, he returned, exhausted but safe. He explained that a reactor imbalance threatened several decks, but the team managed to stabilize it. His calm description hid the risk he must have faced. "You could have been harmed," she said quietly. He nodded. Maybe, but someone had to try. His simple courage unsettled her more than any heroic speech. Humans, she realized, faced danger not because they were fearless, but because they cared. That night, she remained on the platform long after he left, thinking about his words and actions. Slowly, she felt the weight of isolation lifting just enough to breathe. Unknown to her, distant political agents received confirmation of her location. Plans began forming. Forces beyond her control moved closer. But for now, she sat under the stars, holding on to a new feeling. Not hope exactly, but the possibility of it. And for the first time since her exile began, Solitude no longer felt like a prison. Lyra returned to the observation platform earlier than usual that day. She told herself it was coincidence, but deep inside she knew she was waiting for Elias. The quiet corner no longer felt empty. It felt familiar now, like a small, safe space in a vast and unpredictable universe. The station moved through space steadily, its engines humming like a distant heartbeat. Outside, stars drifted slowly, and distant ships left faint trails of light. She watched them, but her thoughts kept returning to the human technician. When Elias finally arrived, he looked more tired than usual. His uniform carried small marks of grease, and his steps were slower. Still, he smiled when he saw her. "You came early," he said. "So did you," she replied. He laughed softly, and the sound felt warm in the quiet air. They sat together without speaking for a while. Lyra noticed how comfortable silence had become between them. Before meeting him, silence had felt heavy and lonely. Now it felt shared.
I have been thinking, she said finally. Humans seem...
Different from other species. He raised an eyebrow. Different good or different strange? Both, she answered honestly. He accepted that answer without offense. Over the next few days, she began sharing more about her past. She spoke slowly, choosing words carefully. She told him about diplomatic halls filled with tension, about negotiations that lasted for days without rest, about leaders who cared more about pride than peace. She avoided mentioning the final failure directly, but Elias understood enough. He did not interrupt or offer advice unless she asked. One evening, while watching cargo ships dock, she said quietly, "They trusted me to prevent war." I failed. Elias did not immediately respond. Instead, he looked at the stars, thinking. "Maybe you didn't fail," he said after a moment. "Maybe the situation failed you. Responsibility remains."
He nodded slowly. Humans believe responsibility matters.
But we also believe one moment doesn't define a whole life. His words stayed with her long after he left.
Meanwhile, the station changed. More official ships arrived, carrying representatives from powerful factions. Security patrols increased, and whispers of rising tension spread among travelers. Lyra felt unease growing. She recognized the signs of political movement. Someone was preparing for something important. One afternoon, a small accident shook the station. A sudden energy surge caused lights to flicker and alarms to echo through the corridors. Panic spread quickly among visitors unfamiliar with emergencies. Lyra remained calm, but she felt concern when she realized Elias would likely be in the middle of the situation. She moved toward the lower decks despite her instinct to avoid attention. Smoke filled parts of the corridor, and emergency teams rushed past. Through the chaos, she saw him, kneeling beside an open control panel, hands moving quickly while sparks flashed around him. Other workers shouted warnings, but he stayed focused. The air smelled sharp and metallic. Lyra felt a sudden wave of fear. He was too close to danger. Finally, the alarms faded, and lights stabilized. A wave of relief spread through the crowd. Elias leaned back, breathing heavily. When he noticed her standing nearby, surprise crossed his face. "You came down here?" he asked. "I wish to confirm your safety," she replied calmly, though her voice carried hidden emotion. "I'm okay." She realized then how much she cared about his well-being, and the realization unsettled her. After the incident, reports spread across the station praising the maintenance team's quick actions. Elias dismissed the attention, insisting he had only done his job. Later, while sitting together again, she asked, "Why risk yourself for strangers?" He thought for a moment before answering. "Because someone would do it for me?" The simplicity of his answer felt powerful. As days passed, more political figures began appearing. Lyra sensed that someone was searching for her. She felt watched again, the familiar pressure returning. One evening, 2 uniformed officials approached the observation platform. Their posture was formal, their eyes scanning carefully. Lyra recognized the insignia instantly, representatives from the coalition she once served. Her body tensed. Elias noticed the change immediately. Without asking questions, he began talking casually about the stars, creating the appearance of an ordinary conversation. The officials glanced at them briefly but continued walking. Only after they disappeared did she relax slightly. "They are looking for me," she admitted quietly. He did not ask why. He simply nodded. "Do you want to leave?" he asked. She hesitated. Running had always been her response before, but something inside her resisted the idea now. "I do not know," she said honestly. The station's atmosphere grew heavier with each passing day. Rumors spread about a growing conflict between major factions. Trade routes were being threatened, and smaller systems feared becoming battlefields. Lyra followed the news silently, recognizing familiar patterns. The same mistakes were being repeated. Elias noticed her watching the reports one evening.
"You understand all this," he said. "Yes," she replied softly.
Then maybe you're needed again. She shook her head immediately.
"I will not return to that role."
He did not argue. Instead, he said gently, "Just because something hurt you once doesn't mean it's always wrong." His words echoed in her thoughts. Days later, a small alien child ran across the observation platform chasing a floating toy. The child tripped, and before Lyra could react, Elias caught the toy and handed it back with a friendly smile. The child laughed and ran away. Lyra watched the moment closely. "You treat everyone with kindness," she said.
"Most people just want to feel safe," he replied.
She realized then that his strength came not from authority or power, but from empathy. Humans, she thought, possessed a unique courage, not only physical bravery, but emotional openness. That night she returned to her quarters feeling different. The heavy weight she carried felt slightly lighter. Unknown to her, surveillance reports confirmed her identity to outside forces. Plans began forming to approach her directly. The following evening, as she sat with Elias again, she spoke more openly than ever before. "I believed Solitude would protect me," she said quietly, but it only made the silence louder. He nodded, understanding. "Humans sometimes hide too," he admitted, "but eventually someone finds us and reminds us we're not alone." She looked at him carefully. His presence had changed her more than she expected. Outside the glass, a distant nebula glowed softly, casting colors across their faces. For the first time since her exile, Lyra felt something close to hope, fragile but real. And somewhere deep inside, she began wondering if perhaps her story was not finished yet. The station felt different now. What once seemed calm and slow had turned tense and watchful. Security drones moved more frequently through the corridors, and travelers spoke in quieter voices. Rumors about political conflicts spread faster than official announcements. Lyra noticed everything, even when she tried not to. She stood beside the wide glass of the observation platform, watching distant ships arrive in steady lines. Some carried diplomatic insignia, others looked like military escorts disguised as civilian transports. She recognized the signs too well. A storm was coming, not of nature, but of decisions made by powerful leaders. Elias arrived carrying a small tool case, placing it beside him before sitting down. He looked at her carefully, noticing the change in her posture. "You already know what's happening, don't you?" he asked gently.
"Yes," she replied.
History repeats itself when no one learns from it. He nodded slowly. He had learned enough from their conversations to understand that her experience ran deep. She had seen conflicts before, maybe even shaped them. For a while, they sat without speaking. The silence felt heavier than before. Finally, she said, "They will ask me to return." "And will you?" he asked. She did not answer immediately. Her gaze remained fixed on the stars. "I am afraid," she admitted quietly. The honesty surprised even her. She rarely allowed herself to say such things aloud. Elias did not react with shock or pity. He simply accepted her words. "Being afraid doesn't mean you're weak," he said. "It means I remember what failure feels like," she replied. He thought for a moment. "Humans fail a lot," he said with a small smile. "Sometimes that's how we learn the most." Before she could respond, two uniformed officials approached from the far end of the platform. Their movements were precise, their expressions serious. Lyra recognized their insignia instantly. Her body tensed. "They found you," Elias murmured quietly. She stood slowly as the officials stopped in front of her. "Diplomat Lyra," one of them said respectfully, "the Coalition requests your presence." "I am no longer part of the Coalition." That may be true, the official replied, but circumstances have changed. A major conflict is forming.
Your expertise is required.
The words felt heavy in the air. Lyra hesitated. Memories of past negotiations flooded her mind. Long arguments, impossible choices, and the moment everything collapsed, despite her efforts. I cannot help you, she said softly. The officials exchanged glances.
You misunderstand, the second official said. Without your guidance, multiple systems may fall into war.
She felt a familiar weight pressing against her chest. Responsibility, expectation, fear. I will consider your request, she said finally. They nodded and left, leaving silence behind. Elias watched her carefully.
That looked difficult. It is not only difficult, she said.
It is dangerous.
He waited for her to continue.
I believed leaving would end my involvement, she said.
But conflict always returns. Elias leaned back, looking at the stars. Maybe the universe isn't asking you to repeat the past, he said slowly.
Maybe it's giving you another chance to do things differently. But something in his tone stopped her. Over the next few days, she studied the news feeds carefully.
Reports confirmed growing tensions between rival systems. Trade routes were blocked. Diplomatic talks had failed repeatedly. Military fleets gathered near disputed borders. She recognized the pattern clearly. War was approaching. Elias continued his work but checked on her whenever possible. He noticed she slept less and spent more time thinking. One evening, while reviewing data in a quiet station lounge, she discovered something unusual. A sequence of messages hidden within official transmissions suggested manipulation from unknown actors. Someone was pushing both sides toward conflict intentionally. She felt a spark of clarity. This was not simply another political disagreement. It was a controlled escalation. She showed the information to Elias later that night. I think someone wants this war to happen, she said.
He studied the data, frowning. Can you prove it?
Not yet. Then maybe that's where you start, he said.
His confidence in her abilities felt strange but encouraging. Together, they began analyzing patterns. Elias used his technical skills to access public station networks, while Lyra applied diplomatic knowledge to interpret hidden meanings within communications. Their partnership felt natural. She realized that humans approached problems differently, creatively, without strict rules limiting their thinking. Elias often suggested ideas that seemed unconventional but effective. Days later, they uncovered evidence of a secret group manipulating trade information to create distrust between systems. The discovery shocked her. She had suspected political tension, but this level of deception was deeper.
If we reveal this, negotiations could change, she said.
Then we should, he replied.
Revealing the truth would force her back into the spotlight.
People will expect me to lead again, she said quietly.
Elias looked at her seriously. Do you believe they deserve the truth?
Yes. Then maybe it's not about leadership. Maybe it's just about doing what's right. His words simplified something she had complicated in her mind.
As they prepared evidence, more officials arrived on the station. Security tightened further. Rumors about imminent conflict spread among travelers, causing anxiety and fear. One night, Lyra stood alone on the observation platform, thinking deeply. She remembered the first time Elias spoke to her, comparing her to Earth after rain, renewal, fresh beginnings. Maybe she had been hiding from herself more than from the galaxy. When Elias joined her, she spoke before he could. I will help them, she said. He smiled gently. I thought you might. But I am still afraid. That's okay, he said. Humans do brave things while afraid all the time. She felt a quiet strength growing inside her. Together, they presented their findings to station authorities. Initial reactions were disbelief, but the evidence was strong. Soon, high-level representatives requested her presence officially. News spread quickly across diplomatic circles. Lyra had returned. Some reacted with hope.
Others with skepticism. She ignored both.
Her focus shifted toward preventing conflict. She prepared carefully, reviewing old strategies, but also considering new approaches inspired by her time with Elias. Instead of strict negotiation tactics, she planned to emphasize understanding and transparency. Meanwhile, unknown forces monitored her closely. The conspiracy she uncovered was larger than expected, and exposing it threatened powerful individuals. One evening, as she and Elias walked through a quiet corridor, an anonymous message appeared on her personal device.
A warning. Stop interfering or face consequences.
She showed it to him. He remained calm, but serious. That means you're getting close to the truth. Fear flickered briefly inside her, but it did not control her anymore. For the first time since her exile, she felt purpose returning. And as the station prepared for critical negotiations that could determine the future of multiple systems, Lyra realized something important. She was no longer facing it alone. The human beside her had changed everything, not through power or authority, but through simple, steady belief, and that belief gave her the courage to step forward once more. The station felt heavier with expectation as the day of negotiations arrived. Delegations from many systems gathered inside the central diplomatic chamber, their ships surrounding the station, like silent watchers. Outside the wide windows, stars burned quietly, unaware of the tension between civilizations below. Lyra stood near the entrance, observing the room before stepping forward. Her posture was calm, but inside, she felt a storm of memories. This place reminded her of past failures, of decisions that once slipped beyond her control. For a moment, doubt whispered again. Elias stood beside her, not in official uniform, but wearing simple work clothes. There had no rank or authority here, yet his presence grounded her more than any political ally could.
"You don't have to be perfect," he said quietly.
"Just be honest." She nodded slowly. Honesty felt like a new path, different from the strategies she once relied on. Representatives began taking their seats. Some looked at her with respect, others with suspicion. Whispers moved through the room as her return became clear. Many believed she was the only one capable of preventing conflict, while others blamed her for past events. Lyra ignored both reactions. When the session began, voices rose quickly. Accusations flew between leaders. Each side insisted the other had caused the rising tension. Military reports were presented, each more alarming than the last. The atmosphere felt close to breaking. In the past, Lyra might have tried to control the discussion immediately, using strict diplomatic structures. This time she waited, listening carefully. She watched faces, noticed hesitation behind anger, fear hidden beneath pride. Finally, she stood.
The room quieted slowly. "I will not begin by assigning blame," she said calmly.
"Blame has brought us here already." Her voice carried steady strength, not forceful, but clear. Some leaders shifted uncomfortably, expecting a more aggressive approach. Instead, she continued, "We must understand why conflict is growing." She presented the evidence she and Elias had gathered: hidden messages, manipulated trade data, false reports designed to increase distrust. As the information appeared on large screens, murmurs spread through the chamber. Shock replaced anger on many faces. "This conflict has been guided," she said. "Someone benefits from our division." Arguments broke out again, but now the focus had shifted. Leaders began questioning their own intelligence sources. The discussion lasted hours. Some resisted the idea of manipulation, unwilling to accept they had been deceived. Others quickly supported her findings. Throughout it all, Lyra remained calm. She used empathy rather than pressure, asking questions instead of giving orders. Slowly, hostility decreased. Representatives began speaking to each other rather than against each other. Elias watched quietly from the side, amazed at the transformation. The woman who once feared returning to diplomacy now moved with natural confidence, shaped not by perfection, but by experience and renewed purpose. As negotiations continued, security teams confirmed additional evidence supporting her claims. The conspiracy became undeniable. A hidden group had been creating false incidents to provoke military responses, hoping to gain power through chaos. When the truth became clear, anger turned toward the real manipulators instead of rival systems. The atmosphere shifted completely. By the end of the day, leaders agreed to pause military actions and begin cooperative investigations. It was not complete peace yet, but it was hope, a fragile bridge built where war once seemed inevitable. After the session ended, many approached Lyra with gratitude. She accepted their words politely, but without pride. Success felt different this time. It felt shared rather than carried alone. Later, she returned to the observation platform with Elias. The station felt quieter now, as if tension had released into the vacuum outside. "You did it?" he said softly.
We did it,
She corrected gently.
he smiled.
They stood together watching distant ships change course, military formations slowly dispersing. Each movement represented lives saved, futures preserved.
I thought I had lost my purpose, she admitted. I believed failure defined me. And now? He asked.
Now I understand that failure teaches, she said slowly. It does not end a journey.
A small transport ship passed by the glass, its engines glowing faintly. Lyra watched it disappear into the stars. "You changed." She shook his head, quietly.
You changed yourself. I just sat next to you. She laughed softly, a sound that felt new even to her.
Over the following days, investigations continued. The hidden conspiracy was exposed fully, preventing further manipulation. Diplomatic relationships improved slowly as trust began rebuilding. Lyra received offers to return permanently to her former position. Some wanted her to lead entire alliances again. She considered them carefully but did not rush her decision. Instead, she spent time walking through the station with Elias, experiencing ordinary moments she had once ignored. They shared meals, watched travelers come and go, and spoke about small things rather than grand politics. One evening, as they stood together on the observation platform again, she said, "When you first spoke to me, you said I smelled like earth after rain." He smiled.
Yeah? What does it mean exactly?
"After rain, everything feels clean, like the world gets a second chance." She looked at the stars, feeling warmth inside her chest.
A second chance,
She repeated. The words felt true. She realized then that humanity's greatest strength was not physical power or advanced technology. It was emotional courage, the ability to see hope where others saw endings. Elias had shown her that simply by being himself. As the station prepared to continue its journey through space, Lyra finally made her decision. She would return to diplomacy, but on her own terms. She would not chase perfection or carry burdens alone. She would focus on understanding, connection, and honesty. The galaxy remained uncertain, but she no longer felt afraid of it. Standing beside a human who treated broken things as repairable, she understood something deeply important. Nothing truly ended while people still believed in renewal. Outside the window, distant stars shimmered like quiet promises, and for the first time in a long time, she stepped forward toward the future, not as someone running from failure, but as someone shaped by it, ready to begin again.